We have two guests in the studio. Before we welcome him, let them hear the day's proverb. CT.
Yes. The day's proverb is from the country of Mozambique.
Okay.
Msumbiji in Kiswahili.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting country this.
It is, huh?
Borders the Great Indian Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It borders Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
It borders South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
It borders Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
And it borders Zambia.
Hey.
And as I said in the earlier hour, this also plays a very, very huge part in the languages that are spoken.
Yes.
In each of these directions, you'll find a dominant language in that country will be reminiscent of the border that they have. For instance, there's Kiswahili spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But it tells you it's the people in that part of the country that borders Tanzania. If it's Shona, if it's all the other languages that you may hear, the multiplicity of languages that are in that country, it's because of the border.
There are people who came from Mozambique many years ago, and they came and settled in Kenya. And for a long time, these people living in the coast of Kenya were not recognized as Kenyans until a few years ago, when President Uhuru Kenyatta signed the decree recognizing these people as Kenyans. Yeah? Yes, so Kenyans are Mozambicans.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Logical conclusion, I guess.
Yeah.
Isn't it just?
It goes to say. Our guests this morning are Martin Andati, who is a political analyst, and Daniel Juma, who's a governance expert. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you hear the proverb, by the way? You didn't, because I didn't say it.
But I know it's from Mozambique.
Yes, slander by the street.
You hadn't said the
You didn't
proverb.
say the proverb.
No, I didn't.
Oh, we
I didn't.
moved on.
I didn't. No, we did move
Sorry.
on. We're still
Okay.
moving on.
Yeah.
Yes.
The proverb.
In a westerly direction.
Huh?
Slander by the stream will be heard by the frogs.
Slander by the stream will be heard by the frogs.
Yes.
Daniel, that proverb. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
What's-
It
what's-
does. Whatever you say, someone will always hear. If you are a gossip in the village, people will always get to know
There's always going to be somebody who hears what you say.
and will tell it the way the frogs do.
They'll be screaming all night.
Yes.
Because, yeah.
Son said that. Yeah.
Martin, is it the same interpretation for you?
Yeah, I think so. He's close to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about what happened. Let's do the slander. Let's talk about what happened over the weekend politically. So, from Friday and Saturday, President William Ruto was in Nyanza, specifically around the areas of Luo Nyanza. He went to Homa Bay, he went to Siaya, held several meetings with leaders, several public meetings and all. And in the lead up to this, State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed had said, the president is coming to this region. He appreciates and acknowledges that we are all Kenyans. There are development projects here that he'll be coming to commission and working with the local leadership. The local leaders of themselves had said the president is welcome to come. And let's hear what he has to say. Now, there are those who have looked at this and wondered, is the president charming the bastion of the opposition? And what is he up to? What's the play here, Daniel?
Thank you. I think the president's visit was, of course, originally it was termed as a homecoming for Eliud Owalo, who is the CS, the only CS from Luo Nyanza and the second CS from Nyanza. But then it turned out to be actually more than the homecoming of Eliud Owalo. And this was expected because, as I have said several times, and you agree with me, is that the elections are over. And usually when elections are held, the process of electing leaders is usually competitive. But at the end of the day, whoever is elected, even if it's by just one vote, carries everything. He becomes the president of the Republic of Kenya. He becomes the president of even those who opposed him. He is the president of even those who did not elect him. This is something that I think many people have not understood, especially in our politics. Especially we have those politicians who think that if you didn't vote for me, or you voted wrongly, then you will not get development in your place. So I think the president is doing what constitutionally Kenyans expect him to do. If you read the Bible, there are times even when Jesus used to say, that he came even for those who don't believe. He came actually for the
For the
prostitutes and those who,
He
So,
came to seek and save that which was lost.
yes.
Yes.
So ideally, politically speaking, a president should focus on those who did not actually vote for him. Actually, if I were the president, the first thing I would do is to do a real charm offensive. Those people who didn't vote for me, and seek to understand why didn't you vote for me. And I really loved it when he was talking about. He was saying that they voted for him like a yayo, like a rat. Originally, the other MP said we gave you votes like a poyo. So ideally,
What are those two words, or what do they mean? What's a poyo?
so Apoyo is a rabbit. It's a small, he received small votes compared to what Baba, Raila Odinga received in that region. So he took it, really, and that is Ruto for you. Ruto, he was enjoying the moment, and to him, it was not a really big deal, but he understood. And also you must understand something about Ruto. Ruto was actually in ODM for a long time. Ruto, if you look at the
Formation of ODM.
even the 2007, 2008 presidential elections, he is the one who fought for Raila Odinga at KCC, fought for his votes. And if you look at all that, the people in Nyanza, actually, Ugenya, where I come from, remember that moment where Ruto actually fought for Raila Odinga. And they thought Raila Odinga would have awarded Ruto at that moment. But unfortunately, Ruto decided Raila Odinga gave Musalia Mudavadi, Deputy Prime Minister, and left Ruto aside. So he has really a big following who remember him nostalgically as someone who fought for Raila Odinga. So he was at his home. You could see he was even speaking the Luo very fluently. You listen to all that. So for me, I think he did marvelously. And whether you call it charm offensive or not, he did what everybody expects him to do. And all those goodies, even the ones that President Kenyatta initiated with Raila Odinga during the handshake, I think the people of Nyanza deserve those things. And I think it was a great moment.
So you're just saying like whatever was happening was what ought to be happening anyway.
It should that's what should happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Martin, do you agree? I mean, what was happening is the president is doing what a president should do anyway. I mean, there's nothing big to read out of this.
You can't say he's doing what the president is supposed to do. We've had presidents before who have sidelined, especially Luo Nyanza. Kenyatta won. After the fallout with Jaramogi, he never went back to Luo Nyanza. Moi, to some extent, also sidelined Luo Nyanza. And Uhuru initially before the handshake. So when you look at Ruto, he's a very shrewd politician. And he's trying to consolidate his votes. You remember, this is not the first time he's been to Luo Nyanza. He was there earlier, and Gladys Wanga took off. She claimed she was doing some function in Mombasa. But this time, I think the owner of the region, Raila Amolo Odinga, had given them the go-ahead. So you saw the mobilization. The crowd stand out massively. And the reception was very warm. They even gave him the Gor Mahia hat. So that has a lot of significance. So that shows that they are more or less accepting him. And even if Raila would want to run in 2027, he's getting tired. So that block, if he were to run or not to run, that block is very critical. And I think that is what President Ruto is looking at. So he's trying to make peace with the blocks where he never got serious support. You've seen him in the Luya Western Bloc. He was there also about a month or so ago, and he promised quite a lot. He met the leaders, and he has reached out to the likes of Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli. He has reached out to quite a number of the people who didn't support him. Those have been traditional Raila Odinga leaning blocks. So he is trying to get those blocks to reach out to them to see if they can ultimately support him in future. He wants to consolidate what he already has, and then reach out to more blocks so that it helps him get more support. And the easier route to reach out is you say you are doing development.
Right.
Because that way you don't raise a lot of eyebrows. So he goes with a bag of goodies. You remember he launched the housing project in Homa Bay. He promised they are going to do the water, address the water issue in Homa Bay town. He also did launch the research hub in Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. He also did quite a lot in Siaya. So those promises are, and the governors want what to ride on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are we saying essentially that, from what we're saying, President Ruto is looking towards the future as opposed to wanting to have a working nation, a collective working nation today with all parts of the country unified as one? Or that what he's doing is so that in the future he can have a vote, as opposed to saying, well, with what we have now, how about we make this Kenya work?
He is using what, his office has, the presidency, even with the 2010 constitution, the president is still very strong. Because we still have almost 70-80% of the money controlled from the treasury. Even the counties, they are not generating enough of their own money.
Yep.
So they are beholden to the national leadership. And governors have realized that if you try to be hostile to the national government, then they sabotage. You know, there have been cases where governors have complained that some counties are receiving money in time. The others which are not receiving their money in time. So if you don't receive your money in time, it means you cannot be able to pay your suppliers. It means you cannot pay your contractors. So it will be very difficult for you to achieve some of the projects we are supposed to achieve. Then two, the allocation of resources is done in Parliament. But the executive has a very big say because they are the ones who prepare the budget, then they take it to Parliament. So currently, UDA and its allies have a majority in the National Assembly. So they have a very big say in how the money is allocated to the regions. So if you come out like you are being very hostile to the national government, then they can decide that they deny you some of those projects.
But I'm saying, is it not possible to imagine, is it too far-fetched an idea to imagine that the president actually wants to work with the unified Kenya today, not 2027, today,
he is
with the things
reaching
that are
out.
going on?
He is reaching out, but he has, at the back of his mind, Ruto is a politician. There are already arrangements about how he is going to run the election of 2027. He does not want, he is saying, siasa imekwisha. But you can see, Ruto, the politician, is still out there. When he talks about a yeyo, a poy, and all that, it is politics. So he promises, he is giving out the goodies, but at the same time using that to create a rapport with the people so that when he comes to seek the vote, there will be no hostility.
I have a problem, and it's a big one. When I have eminent gentlemen like the two guests we have, referring to fundamental rights of the citizens as goodies, these are not gifts.
Supposed to happen.
That's what the government is supposed to do. If they weren't doing it in the past, it was wrong. So when someone comes and tells you that they're fulfilling the mandate of ensuring that development projects that have been budgeted for and which are in our budget will actually get done, that's what they're supposed to do. It's not something to be jubilant over.
I agree.
In an ideal situation.
Not ideal.
Are we in an ideal situation?
No. The reason why we have a constitution that it's an aspirational document, we should be heading in that direction. And if we insist on referring to these things as goodies, we haven't moved. We are still at that stage where the Mheshimiwa is supposed to bring roads. They're supposed to bring schools. They're supposed to bring everything. And I'm saying no. Absolutely no. It's not a favor that people are being done. It's what they should do.
Yes, but going with the history of the country, with what previous presidents have done, like Martin is saying, what previous presidents have done and what this president is doing, what do you read out of it? Do you read the president actualizing the constitution with no strings attached, with no underhand, with nothing up his sleeve?
What you're asking me that question?
Yes.
What I am seeing is the difference and the fundamental difference that President William Ruto is showing. He's coming out openly to manifest a handshake process. But it is not new. In this country, at the dawn of independence, Kanu handshake. We've been having handshakes throughout our history. And we thank God for it, because Most of the conversations are behind the scenes. We then see people working together quietly. But that handshake legacy that we have has been our saving grace in many, many instances, because Kenyans, the politicians, have this ability to disagree seriously, but they also have the ability to sit back and say, can we have a chat and see how we can sort this thing out? Now, the president, maybe he had those chats behind the scenes, but he's coming out openly and saying, okay, folks, you know something? Why don't we just put this thing right out in the open? And so that you can see that what will lead to the handshake, I'm doing it. I'm not talking about it and then telling you we have a handshake. I'm in the process of doing it. But it has ramifications.
I think there's a thin line. If you between development, you say he's doing what he's supposed to do, and that's what I said earlier on. And already campaigning, doing his politics for 2027. So there's a thin line. As president, you may never know at what point he's doing development and at what point he's campaigning. But I still reiterate that, and I agree with the Muga, that it's a no-brainer. This is what the president needs to be doing. And also the Constitution expects the president to be a symbol of national unity. And he's doing that, bringing the nation together. And for me, I think it is just, it is good that he's demonstrating to the people. And one of the things that I also like is that he is reaching out to the people directly. You may call it a handshake process or not, but what President Ruto has always said earlier on, even during his campaign, he said there will be no handshake this time. And I agree with him. That
and what do you call what we saw over the weekend?
It doesn't have to be a handshake. You understand?
No, surely.
The thing is,
brother, this thing
it is a handshake in all but name.
Okay. A handshake has to be Ruto's hand on one side.
Yes.
Whose hand on the other side?
But the people, I think the people,
or
it's
is it
a handshake
Raila?
with the people. And
Not
you see,
with
he
Raila.
was saying that the people who never voted for him, and I think this is a masterstroke on his part. He's reaching out to the people directly. And one thing you must have realized with the people of Nyanza,
You think he has
and I come from Nyanza.
Do you think he has sidestepped Raila in this?
Yes. Okay. I don't know whether they spoke or not.
Do you think?
But what I know, and what I think is that President Ruto wants to reach out to the people directly. He's the president of the people. And what he has done is very, very clever in one way, because at some point, and you see earlier on when he was in Homa Bay, like Andati said, Governor Wanga, was not there.
Yeah.
But this time, Governor Wanga and most of these politicians in Nyanza have realized that the people of Nyanza are changing. The people of Nyanza want development. The people of Nyanza are tired of being marginalized as a result of politics, and elections are over. So what he has done is reach out to the people directly. And now this time round, the politicians had no choice but to join in. And I think it is a good idea that Raila Odinga and his team
I
had
think there is
decided
something
to actually
Juma is
do that.
missing.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You remember there is a group of politicians who mostly lost elections, Kidero and others, who have been hitting at Raila. Obado, that group. And they have been all over the place selling Ruto in quotes.
Yes.
Did you see them being given any prominence?
No.
They were nowhere.
They were sidelined.
Including
They were
even
greeted.
your MP, my friend Dave Ochie.
Yes, they were sidelined.
They were all sidelined.
Yes.
So that speaks volumes. Two, immediately after, as the what Muga is calling the handshake move was going on, you've noticed they are now saying the leader of official opposition will even be allowed to address the state. They will enjoy immunity, So you don't need to be told for you to see, because who is supposed to be the leader of opposition here? They are making that office, making it very lucrative, such that now the things Raila was raising, because Raila was saying he does not want a shell. And initially he was even opposed to that idea. Now he has started softening. So you see, you sidelined the people who have been hitting at Raila. You now work with the elected leaders. And you see, Gladys Wanga is a known Raila diehard. And there is no way she will do the kind of mobilization. There's no way she will receive Raila the way. Why didn't she receive Ruto the way she has received him this time? It speaks volumes. Raila didn't need to talk to Ruto direct. But if there is quiet rapprochement and there are moves, and you remember Raila met the leader of the High Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
British High Commission the other day. So all these are moves.
And then she met with the DP.
Then she met with the DP from there. So you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that there is some rapprochement going on. You see, so it's quiet. It's worked out. You get Atwoli moving there. A few days later, Ruto is going to Luo Nyanza. The reception, you even saw Buru. Buru was there.
Yeah.
Very active.
At Jaramogi.
Yeah, at Jaramo, at the university, but he didn't go to Wallace, I think, because of their own personal issues. But you can see the rapprochement. And you see, Owalo didn't even take center stage here. Orengo took center stage, So that speaks volumes, Yeah, that is very interesting because initially it has been Owalo running all over Luo Nyanza, giving out relief food.
Yes.
And purportedly selling Ruto. But you see now, Owalo has been told to take a back seat. You have the elected leaders now taking a front seat and issuing very strong statements which look like they have fully accepted the Ruto presidency.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. It's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. When we come back, I want to know what you think Raila's hand is in all this, whether he has a hand in it or not. This is The Situation Room. Our guest this morning, Martin Andati, a political analyst, and Daniel Juma, who is a governance expert. We are talking about Ruto's recent charm offensive into Western Kenya and Luo Nyanza. Is it going to pay off? Is it already paying off? That's the discussion.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga, and our guests, Martin Andati and Daniel Juma. You want to know that this country, Kenyans, always, you can never satisfy everybody. Alex Mbogo says, all we know is that Ruto comes to church in Mount Kenya and serious business is taken to Nyanza and the coast. When it comes to Mount Kenya, church. The rest is opening, I don't know what. Housing.
Let me say something, Eric. For a long time, during the Kibaki regime, during the Uhuru regime, we have had a few Luos who benefited from government. They used to call themselves Luos in government. That they would go to State House and endear themselves to the president and say, we are with you. Raila is opposing you there. We are the only ones standing with you. So we had people who benefited. People like Tuju, people like Onyango Lo, all these people. Even when appointments were being given to Luos, they were going to this few cliques. So I'm happy that President Ruto is actually finishing this. We no longer we don't need Luos in government. And actually, I don't agree with this clique of Luos who have been going around abusing Raila Odinga. We don't agree with them. You don't abuse Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga is respected in Luo Nyanza. So the best thing is give him his respect, but do your politics. So
have they been abusing Raila? Have they been differing with Raila?
Okay, they have been differing, but
and you don't differ with Raila.
Then in a way that that you don't do. We Luos have a way, we respect our elders. And even though we disagree with him, I agree. In 2019, I disagree with Raila politically when I ran for Member of Parliament to Kenya. When he would not do a nomination ODM. I took a small party and ran. I said, Mzee, I respect you with your party. I don't. You have a right.
You are abusing Raila.
No, I was not. But I said, let me take my small party.
Abusing Raila.
I took a small party and ran with it.
How dare you?
Did you meet Uhuru?
No, I didn't meet Uhuru. But I did.
Did you go to State House?
No, I didn't.
That's the only thing.
So what we are saying is that the Luos are not in opposition. People who did not vote for the president are not in opposition. And I like when the president said that the people who are in opposition are actually the opposition leader, those who ran for election and lost. The people did not lose elections. The people took part in the process constitutionally. So the people of Nyanza and those who didn't vote for President Ruto should not have the mindset that they're in opposition. No, they're not in the opposition. Those who are in opposition are those who are elected, and those who did not win. And I'm happy that we are now having the talks about the official opposition office in Parliament, so that the people in opposition can have a structured way of doing their politics.
Daniel, you're a very, very, very diplomatic person.
Yes.
For the longest time, from the time Jaramogi Oginga Odinga differed with Jomo Kenyatta, the Luos have been in the opposition. It's not a complicated issue. And the Luyas have also joined. That region was essentially an opposition zone, by and large.
That was the
Every time it changed, Jaramogi was given a breather, Raila joined, Kanu, briefly, okay? But that was an opposition zone. It's just a simple fact.
That was the mindset of the people, the leaders at that time, who thought that the fact that the opposition leader comes from that area, then this place is opposition.
But Daniel, remember also, at the same time as I'm saying this, you have said it yourself, there were people from that very region who are in government.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember ministers like Matthews Ogutu.
You see the discussion?
Dalma
Yes.
Otieno.
You see the discussion we're having here at this particular point is the issue of political leaderships, and it must be had. Who decides? Is it the president or the people? Because there are people whom the presidents chose, brought into government, and yet there are people who were not chosen, and yet they held sway. When they spoke, the people listened, the people followed. Now, that leadership ceases when I think the people get tired and they decide perhaps we don't want this person anymore. But so long as people seem to decide that that is their leader, it doesn't matter who is made minister, who is appointed where. The people will still follow the individual they have chosen to follow.
Perhaps this question can give some direction in all of this, as those who might be listening and ask themselves, okay, so the question is, why does all this matter? Why does it matter?
Because the president is still powerful. You know, the 2010 constitution was supposed to take some of the powers away from the presidency. But by and large, we've not done much. Because even with the devolution, the governors are powerful, but as I said before, they still, you know, they still
only
have
control a combined 350 billion
yes,
shillings over 3 trillion
350
budget.
out of 3, which is 10%. You know, so, you know, the powers are still held by the presidency, and the presidency is still controlling the resources. And you see what he was saying. We are in, if we had if the constitution was fully functional the way it's supposed to work, then the presidency will not be running around dishing goodies. But that is not what is happening. Two, there is also confusion that we are creating. What we picked is a pure presidential system, which is American. There is no opposition in America. It is either the minority or the majority. So why are we now creating this thing we are calling lead of opposition?
But you people,
Because the mistake we
just
did.
because Americans don't call that person opposition doesn't mean that we all don't know that these are the opposition.
Yeah, but you see, what we can do is, if we want to amend the constitution, why don't we allow the guys who run for president to also run for MP or for Senate? So that if Raila had lost the elections the way he has lost, he will still be a member of parliament and he will be leading his troops in parliament. You know, because that is what happens in America.
So you're advocating for a parliamentary system now?
No, it's not parliamentary.
Or a hybrid?
You have you see what they are trying to create back is to create now is a mongrel. You have now the leader of official opposition who does not sit in parliament. You create that office and give it a lot of powers, so that you know, you are now creating an office purposely to entice Raila so that he is not out there in the streets, because he's very disruptive. You know, Ruto knows, you know, Raila can keep Ruto busy for the next 5 years until he will not achieve anything. So to get him away from the streets, you structure him and give him an office where at least you can manage him. You know, now if he has a structured office, he has staff, he has his deputies, he has a shadow cabinet, which is paid for by the taxpayer, and he's allowed to address parliament. He's even allowed to address the states. You know, he will not now go out there and cause mandamano and tear gas mandate. So you have him managed, you know. It is easier that way than having him going to Kibera and calling the troops to go and paralyze the businesses in town every Monday.
So in all this, do you see a possibility that President Ruto has had a conversation with Raila Odinga?
He might not have had a direct conversation, but there is a very big possibility that the British High Commissioner is mediating something. So you know, the British and Americans have a lot of interests here, and you can see the Chinese suddenly have disappeared. Even when you move around, you don't see many of them around.
No, I saw the
Martin.
They are not taking center stage the way they had taken in the Uhuru regime. You can see
The expressway is finished.
Never did you see the Chinese ambassador doing any political.
they were not doing politics, but they were
Mediations.
influencing a lot of stuff quietly.
But
How
I
do you know
noted
they're still not doing
the
that?
foreign affairs minister of China was in Africa.
Yeah.
He visited 4 countries,
Yes.
including Ethiopia, but never came to Kenya. So that was telling for me. That was quite telling. But coming back to that issue, I am one person who thinks these people talk. Raila Odinga, William Ruto, these guys are friends. They talk.
And they all live in Karen.
They all live in Karen, they talk.
Well, now Ruto lives in Caledonia.
Okay?
But he has a home in Karen.
Yeah, so I think they talk, and also you have to see people like Sudi. Sudi is very, very close to Raila Odinga, and rumor has it, he visits there a lot, and he was also he was being introduced in Homa Bay, where Kaijuang was saying this guy is a good person, he has a good heart. Sometimes he gets crazy, the mouth gets crazy sometimes, but he's a very good person. So there's a lot of that connection. I think these people do talk. It is just us, the masses, who believe that they don't talk, but I think they have a back channel where they communicate. Right now, I think they are looking for a way, a space-saving way of bringing those structures in play. Like this talk of the official leader of opposition, Mugabe want to call it the handshake. But as you know, President Ruto had said there's not
What
going
do
to be
you
any
call
handshake.
it? You call it a carrot?
You can call it whatever you want to call it. But one thing you have to agree, and this is something I agreed, and one of the reasons that why I thought BBI, some aspects of BBI was very, very critical, was because if someone gets, like when Ruto won by 7 million, Raila was 6.9, almost a difference of 200,000 votes. Someone has made such an effort. You don't just throw him and tell him to go and cook mandazi in Bondo. And yet, he has these masses of people who still believe in him. So there needs to be a face-saving way of keeping him busy. So I agree. Whoever is coming up with that bill in Parliament.
Is it face saving or is it
okay?
Acknowledgement
yes, whatever you call it.
of the political reality?
This is the political reality. We need to treat our political leaders, especially someone on the caliber of Raila Odinga, who ran and actually almost, made it. Give him some dignity. Just give him some dignity. Give him some structured way of managing his people, managing his politics, so that he's
Daniel,
not out there in the
I have
streets.
to ask you.
Yes.
You seem to be suggesting that he doesn't have a structured way of managing his people, managing his politics. And that's what he seems to have been doing for the last God knows how many decades.
I know, but
Yes.
politics is about allocation of resources and values. Resources is key. Even though he's out there, he needs to be, facilitated by the taxpayer to do his politics. So how do you do this? I think the only meaningful way is through the leader of the official leader of the opposition.
So-
And I agree. I don't agree that we need to copy everything the way it is in America. I think we can come up with our own hybrid system where we have the presidential system, but we also have a way of giving these people, something to keep themselves busy.
What is the good of the country in all of this? Because, we talk about individuals and their satisfaction, what they've contributed to the politics of the country. If we look at just this conversation that we're having about what happened in Luo Nyanza and what the trajectory of then the country's politics will look like in the next, few months, years, how do the people of Kenya benefit from this? How does the development of the country then take center stage? Because that is what government is supposed to do. We can talk about the politics, etc., but those then who, through a political process, are put in government are essentially supposed to then perpetuate the development of the country. There's nothing else. That's what is supposed to happen. How do the people of the country benefit now from these conversations that we're having? Of what merit, of what benefit then is it?
The president has said he needs an opposition, a constructive opposition that will keep his government in check. Having an opposition leader or opposition, body of politics that actually keeps these people to do what they promise that they're going to do is of benefit, direct benefit to the people. So for me, I think this is very, very critical.
The people who are, I'm sorry.
Yes.
The people who are sitting today, and I'm gonna go because it's a pain point,
Yes,
right?
yes.
The people who are hungry today, the people who are sitting and crossing their fingers that the 23rd of January would come maybe 6 months further because they don't know how they're going to send their children to school. The people who go to a medical facility today and say, look, I don't have enough or my cover has run out, whatever. The people who are making a living from agriculture and then cannot buy farm inputs because they're too expensive. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the people who are waiting to be placated for whose rump they try to go and embrace during a political process. I'm talking about the people of the country of Kenya who have rights that need to be fulfilled by a sitting government.
Absolutely. The opposition, the people who have been elected, have a right to raise these issues. For example, look at the issue of GMO, for example. We need to have a structured voice. There are people who have opposed GMO, and now government is saying GMO is good. But we need to hear the voice of the opposition.
You speak as if there's no structured way. There's a minority. A recognized minority in the House.
There is, but if you look at that parliament...
Are you saying that those who have been elected by the people and they only found themselves in the minority in parliament don't have enough clout?
Actually, the way our parliament is structured is that the legislature is supposed to check the executive.
Yes.
There is clear separation of powers. But that is clearly not happening because if you go to the parliament, it is about the majority, the tyranny of numbers, where the president will have his way in parliament. It is because he has the numbers. Even if it's an issue that is genuinely an issue that really needs to be looked
how
at.
different would it be?
There is
Today, you have Opiyo Andai, who's the leader of minority,
Yeah.
and he's got his leaders. He
Yeah.
has got deputy minority leader, he's got chief whips, and all those. How different would it be if, on the issue of GMO, for example, a voice of the minority being heard than when you have somebody else who is not even sitting in parliament, who's called leader of opposition, speaking from out there? Does it add any voice? Does it add any value? Is it any different from Raila Odinga calling a press conference and standing there alongside Martha Karua and saying we oppose GMO, and then Opiyo and I saying the same?
It doesn't guarantee, but unfortunately in this country, there's that perception that, if Raila speaks, for example, on an issue, then it may be taken seriously.
But remember,
unfortunately,
the proposed structure
doesn't have to
sits outside parliament,
yes.
sits under the executive. The executive whose budget is controlled by
Parliament.
president.
the president.
So if this office of official opposition is created but not properly resourced, what impact is it going to have?
But let me ask the question. Do you feel that Raila Odinga needs that structure in order to be an effective leader of the opposition?
No, he doesn't. Because Raila has played opposition politics effectively even when he's out there. So you don't need to give him a title for him to do what he's doing. And in fact, to me, he's more effective when he is out there than when you put him in a box. He is able to get funding. As things are currently, Raila enjoys a pension. Even Musalia, he has been enjoying a pension. I think they'll only stop now that he's in government. But they all enjoy, even Kalonzo. So they are given vehicles, they are given pension, they have security, they have all those things paid for by the taxpayer. So they are not that
They're not badly off, eh?
They are not badly off, So they are out there. They are still able to remain afloat and be able to get things done. The only issue now, what we need to be addressing is what Madam is raising here. There are people who look at, you remember the case of the late Kasavuli. She ran out of cover and nobody was able to address those issues until when she died. We don't have a functional healthcare system. The other day, you guys were airing the story of Omukami Kimathi. It took the intervention of the DP for the bills to be settled. Now, those are just a few cases. We have thousands and thousands of people out there who have no Medicare. You fall sick, you are on your own. We have the issues that she's talking about, fees. Generally, even people who are in business will tell you there is no money out there. Because you see the money for Pesa was being paid 4 months, they have not paid. They paid last week on Monday. There are many other things which have not been happening. So generally, the Mwananchi is suffering, Even businesses are struggling. Companies are paying half pay.
If at all.
If at all. We have even serious institutions like yours have been retrenching. All the media houses are retrenching, because they can't sustain the numbers.
Yeah.
And even when they retain people, they are paying them half pay. You saw Egerton has collapsed. They are indebted to the tune of 9 billion. But you see, nobody is having a serious conversation.
So
around
who
those
speaks
issues.
for the people then, Martin?
That is where now we are having a problem, because we don't have a structured way of engaging on the serious issues.
But we have a structured way. We have a parliament.
We have a
go to the
parliament.
vote, they elect somebody to represent them.
A
member of parliament.
We have a parliament, but the MPs have not shifted. The mindset has not shifted. They are still in the old thinking that you are supposed to bring roads, what Muga was talking about. The MP thinks his work is to go and get roads from Nairobi. The MP thinks they don't want...
Is it the MP who thinks, or is it the voter?
Because that is what the Mwananchi
CDF.
has also made them to think that's what they're supposed to do. And you see, when we got the 2010 constitution, we wanted to have a paradigm shift, to move away from that, so that you have the legislature doing their work properly. You have the executive on its own doing its own work. You have the judiciary doing its own work independently. So that we have all these institutions functioning, then we will have a very good country. But you see, that is not happening the way it's supposed to be. There are even regulations which our parliament is supposed to have passed to fully operationalize the 2010 constitution. Up to now, some of those regulations have never been passed.
As long as you have members of parliament still agitating emotionally for CDF, there's nothing good that will come out of that house, and for me, I agree with the judiciary. I agree with those who have agitated that CDF is an executive issue, needs to be left as such, and I'm hoping that we don't go there, so that these people in parliament focus on these issues that Ndu is talking about.
Daniel, you're a politician.
Absolutely.
You've engaged with the people.
Yes.
Asking their votes.
Yes.
All right? Do you think your people agree with you?
The people
that
not
CDF should now be removed. We should only expect development from the national government and from the county. The MP should go to Nairobi.
That will be a discussion. That is a long discussion. If you go there, it's going to be a very tough discussion. But there's nothing wrong with giving CDF, for example, to the counties.
What?
I mean, I'm looking at even cascading it down
to the MCA now.
To the equivalent of an MCA.
There's no equivalent. There is only MCA.
There's only MCA.
So that it reaches more
equivalent is the person who lost the election.
No.
For the MCA, that's the equivalent. But
or get someone, and for example, someone in charge of bursaries in the constituencies, and give that money so that they're handling that money directly. But the members of parliament, and I can see somewhere here, they need to focus on the legislation, on oversight, on asking these difficult questions.
Our next guest, our next guest has been a constituency MP.
Yes.
And is now a nominated MP.
Yes.
Nominated means CDF, not there. We'll ask him what he thinks about this.
But also, CDF has done very well. If you look at what the project CDF has done in the constituencies, even
is it value for money?
Yes, serious value for money.
Shilling for
you
shilling.
they could have eaten maybe 20%. Yeah, but they could have eaten 20-30%. But the truth is, the projects which charge the people have been done by CDF.
Okay.
You can't compare it to what the MCS are given. You can't compare it to what the governors are given.
Martin,
The governors have overemployed people. The governors have engaged in a lot of wastage.
We'll invite you again for continuation of this conversation. Martin Andati and Daniel Juma have been our guests this morning. We will invite them again to continue the conversation. Governance in this country. In the next hour, we have the nominated MP John Badi, chairman of ODM, and also the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly, to come and tell us. Now, he'll be speaking from the horse's mouth, from somebody who a bit knows what was happening with the president's visit to the Nyanza region.